Because eventually, it wasn't the time we were doing it. That's right.
16 of 25, I think is what it goes.
That's pretty good. There's,
More time.
there'll be more that'll slowly come in.
Yep.
Kind of glad it was really slow.
Instead of having a few bucks in the back.
Okay, you can start whenever you want, Tom.
Okay. I'll start now.
Okay.
Thank you for coming today. I have several bad jokes. Three of them are food and beverage related. Why are peppers so good at archery? Because they have an arrow. I got one chuckle. Okay, so I won't have any of the rest of them. Okay, what do you call a fake noodle? An impasta. And the last of the food and beverage jokes. What did one plate say to another? Dinner's on me. Okay. We're having a great year from a sales perspective. We've had 22 sales today. One just got sold yesterday. And we have no current units listed, but we do have some listings that are upcoming, probably 2 upcoming listings. So things have been selling rapidly and at good prices are holding well. So we're excited about that. Our new executive chef, Brian Cochran, has been on the job for 3 weeks and he's making some adjustments towards sustainability and appropriate production. Sandy is training our new accounting director, Michelle Lehman. She just returned from a trip to Chicago where she was being trained at V. And recruiting for the new executive director is underway. There have been interviews this week and we're extremely hopeful that there'll be a new one coming soon. The refurbishment project is going to begin Monday, July 31st. It'll start in the living room and in the library. We'll be busily taking all the books out of the library and all the furniture out of those rooms before Monday. So if you see some activity, that's what that's related to. We'll be starting on the ceilings and then lighting and then paint and then carpet and furniture will be in October. So we'll be doing those. We're doing this in 2 phases. The first phase does not require construction, and that will be the living room, the card room, the library, and both dining rooms. In phase 2 will be both of the bars and the rotunda, and the ballroom will be last because we intend to use the ballroom for a lot of different events and occasions in the meantime, including dinner when we are renovating one of the dining rooms. We'll have dinner here and one of the rooms, and then we'll finish that room and then have dinner here with the other one while that's getting done. We've done this before, it works great. Some people never wanted to leave the ballroom after it was over, so we're excited about that. You know what is red and smells like blue paint? Red paint. Okay, on a lighter note, let's have, all of you received at some point the Tide Point history. If you haven't, you can check in at the concierge desk, and it'll be distributed to you. I'll give this one away right after it to you, Mr. and Ms. Hannock, since you're the most recent and most. I'll be glad to get one to you too. The Hannocks just moved in this week or last week? Last week. And the Bowens have been here about 45 days, right? Yeah.
They're old timers.
Yeah. So we're glad to have all of them with you. You want me to introduce everybody else? Y'all can do that afterwards. So let's talk about Tide Point for a minute. Tide Point's about 26 years old. I started with Tide Point in 2002. We had our first hurricane evacuation in 2000, and they relocated to Augusta to a Holiday Inn at that time. And nothing happened here. It was wonderful. That's how we like them to work. And they returned. Then we didn't have any other evacuations for about 15 years. And in 2016, we did have an evacuation and about $4 million worth of damage and 9,000 cubic yards of tree and plant debris. And we recovered from that well. And then the next year, we had another hurricane, Hurricane Irma, which was more of a flooding or rising water event. And we survived that one pretty well in Augusta as well. And then we also evacuated for Dorian in 2019, and we were fortunate that nothing serious happened here, and we were able to return pretty quickly for that one. So it is hurricane season now, and I really want to thank you all. We have only 5 units that don't have a hurricane plan yet, which is really good, and we're drilling on them by the day. So we're real excited that we've gotten it down from about 50% to about 2%. So that's really great, and I thank you all for doing that. It's really important that you know what your plan is when we get ready to evacuate. We recommend you go on your own, make your plans on your own. We will take people that are less able, not able to drive, etc. If you can drive, it's a good idea to drive to an evacuation point and make that decision early, because we may be gone. We've been gone as long as 10 days before, and it's really great if you have an automobile and you do drive during that period, because you will not feel as closed in as you may if you're stuck in a hotel. However, we have tried to entertain you during all those times. We've been to baseball games in Augusta. We've been to river cruises in Augusta. So our lifestyle department is always actively involved in trying to make everybody's day better while we're away. So again, know what medications you would need to have. We'll give you a notification when we're looking at a hurricane. And if you'll make sure your car's full of gas, you have your medications or any medical supplies or equipment you need is at hand, and just be ready. We've been very fortunate the last several years, and I hope we'll be fortunate this year. It's very unpleasant. Even if you've heard stories about how much fun people had, it's not fun. It's had really good, positive people. Yes, sir.
When you say about making your own decision, we decide to drive,
Uh-huh.
are there rooms reserved for those who drive in Augusta or wherever you say
Well,
you choose?
To be perfectly honest with you, it's a last minute scramble to find hotels and rooms. We have agreements that fall through. This is just after having done 3 of them. So it's good if you can make reservations on your own early. If not, we will get rooms somewhere. We may not know where the rooms will be until the day you leave. Okay, if you have family that live in the area and you plan to relocate with them, that's not a bad idea. Over time, you have a lot of built-in support there. If you have friends in areas like Charlotte, Greenville, west of Columbia, Augusta, Macon, Atlanta, those are all good places to go during that. Now keep in mind, during a hurricane, usually Florida is threatened first. So the entire state of Florida leaves and they come to Georgia and South Carolina. So we're in a constant battle for hotel rooms. It's not just automatic. We have been very fortunate over the years that we've been able to secure reservations and really take over a hotel in Augusta that's less than desirable. However, it's a great hurricane shelter. It's a terrible hotel. Okay, so it is a disastrous emergency. Keep that in mind, you know, if the restaurant's not open, you know, it is a disaster. So we'll do everything we can. We've had some good history. I mean, the first time we evacuated, people came back singing songs and telling everybody how great it was. The next year, water was pouring through the ceiling of the ballroom where we were eating because it was a flooding event. And the next year, we were able to secure a rooftop bar that really helped everybody's attitude. So we will make the best of it, but expect the worst. And like I said, have a plan, think about what you're gonna do, and then articulate that plan to us so that we know how many rooms we have, how many bus seats we need, et cetera, when we do go. Please don't switch it up at the last minute. No, no. Okay, so Tide Point is 26 years old. We've had 6 executive directors in the 6 years before I came. And somehow they couldn't get me out of here. I've really enjoyed it terrifically. We had a reserve of $68,000 when in the year 2000, and it really didn't increase until 2003. And then since then has built. We have built $23,000 into our budgeted experiences, our budgeted over the years. The average we've spent every year is almost $1 million, about $945,000 that we plan to spend. We've only spent $737,000 on an average of a year. So that's been pretty good. There were some years we didn't have as much to spend, but on average, over the years, we've spent about $737 a year. 700,000. Okay, and then we've planned this every year. We developed a 10-year plan about 18 years ago. We've been through several iterations of that plan, and we have spent less every year on an average on capital items and large projects of about $200,000 less than we anticipated to spend on average. Sometimes we have overspent. About 4 years or 5 years, we have spent more, And so the other 15 we spent less, and that's kind of been the balance over the years. So our contributions each year, plus any surpluses that we've had, which we have had many surplus years, have been about average of about $720,000, which has made up that reserve ending balance over time of $30 million. And that from that, we've spent, or we've saved about $700,000 a year, or on average, we've spent about $700,000 a year and saved about 200. We've anticipated spending near $1 million on average a year. This project coming up, we're favorable to budget on the first part, which was the refurbishment of all the hallways. We're favorable there by about $300,000 on that project. And this project, as I said, will begin in earnest. It has been going on, but there are a lot of things to figure out on the project. And so that'll actually, you'll see painters and contractors here on Monday, July 31st, I promise. So, how have we done operationally? Okay, operationally, our year-end balance averages favorable $23,000 a year on average for the last 26 years. We have had some down years. In 2007, during the recession, there was some property insurance increases, and so we had a loss of $174,000, but we had surpluses of about $300,000 in the next 2 years after that. So we got back on our feet well. And then last year, 2022, was one of the other significant years. We had about $170,000 loss, but we had a lot of salary adjustments, if you remember, during that year, last year, to get people, hourly employees' salaries up to a level that we can keep employees. So that was the major adjustment there. And so this year, we're starting out with a deficit, but we have some measures of correction. We have the financials back. Our cyber event is fixed at this point. So our storage of data, et cetera, is functional at this time. So now we'll be able to have financial statements beginning next month. They'll be up to speed. That was really difficult. I've never not had financial statements monthly in 46 years of operating. So that one has been a real struggle, but we'll make a good comeback from that as well. On the average, as I said, our year-end balance has been $23,000 a year. Our goal is to break even, so we're doing a little better than that. When we do have an overage like that, or favorable balance, surplus at the end of the year, we have historically always put that into the reserve to increase the reserve amount. That's a board decision every year. They have 3 or 4 options that they could do. They could make the service fees lower the next year. They could start out with a surplus. They could give it back to you. All those are bad ideas, by the way. But they can put it into the reserve, which is historically what has happened every time there's been a surplus. And there've been about 12 surplus years that made up that 23,000. Some of them are significant, almost reactive to the 2 years before that. Our average increase yearly is about 3.8%. So we had our largest ever last year, again, to try to adjust to the job situation. And that was 7.7%. The lowest we've never had a zero. I had a zero many years ago in Cypress, and they're still blaming me for it. So we have had about 5 years in a row of under 2%. So it is based on what is happening in the world. You know, we've had, when I first came here, we had just had the attack on the Twin Towers, the 9/11 situation. And so we had a real adjustment economically on that because people weren't buying at that point. We recovered from that quickly. Then we had a recession in about 2008, and we adjusted from that significantly. And then in the past several years, we've had some, we had COVID for 2 years, seems like it was 10. But we have been able to adjust to the whole COVID event as well, which was something that nobody had made preparations for. Believe it or not, we were more prepared for Ebola than we were for COVID that really came on all of a sudden. And so we still we have one employee out right now with COVID. So we ask that you be careful, you stay home if you have symptoms of any kind. I have heard on the news about new colds that are out there. But if you do feel bad, stay home, call the wellness center, we'll get you tested, and we'll keep you notified as to what you may need to do. Wow. Pour down rain. That's good. So, I think I'll talk about me now. Who in the world am I? 47 years ago, I went to work at the Hilton. I was still in college at the time in Wilmington, North Carolina, and started bartending and stacking chairs and tables every night after school, and then graduated with an art degree. I still am practicing my art degree in many ways. I treat business as art, because if I treated it like business, I wouldn't like it. So I was with the Hilton for 10 years, and then I was recruited by Life Care Services Corporation, who's the largest manager of continuing care for retirement communities. They have about 138 that they manage now. At the time I joined them, which was about 38 years ago, they had 38 communities, which was still the most. I opened a brand new community for them, which you can tell they must have been really desperate to hire somebody with no experience to open a brand new community. It was also a brand new concept, which was what's now called Type A, but it was a return of capital plan. Before that plan, people put in a certain amount and it reduced every year, and then you didn't get anything back if you were there for 2.5 years. That was your investment in that. This one offered a return of capital of 90%, 50%, and then also the fully amortized one you lose in 2.5 years. It went very well. We started it, we had no clubhouse. Clubhouse wasn't ready for about a month. So we served in the lobbies of the apartment buildings there out of a residential kitchen that wasn't sold, and we did that for about 2 months. So that was a real bonding time for everybody, not unlike a hurricane. We did have a bar open 12 hours a day, which helped attitude significantly. And so we moved in a building every 2 weeks there until we were able to fill it up and get the clubhouse operational. And I actually had lawns and grass within 6 months. Before that, it was red mud, if you're familiar with asked to go open another new community 5 years later. We built that one out, we added, more quadruplexes to it. And then, I came to Cypress. The Cypress had been 4 years in, pre-sales. And again, they were desperate because they asked me to come, do it. And, not knowing any better, I did. And so we were able to open the Cypress, within about 2 months of when I, arrived. And so we hired everybody, got it all running, and had people moving in. I think I came in November and we moved the first people in February. So, we were able to do that. We actually built the original buildings, occupied all those, and then built 2 more buildings. And, then I had an offer to be a vice president of operations for a local, relatively local company in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee. We tried in Florida for the whole time I was there, but we never could get in the market in Florida. And, so we managed up to, at one point, 18 communities, long-term 12 for 6 years. And I was dying. I was in Greenville, North Carolina, South Carolina. I was dying to get back to the ocean. And so, a friend of mine who was an executive director here, and also was the executive director after me at the Cypress, and then he came here when this opened, Stuart Ingram. I don't think anybody was here then. Called me and asked me if I was still interested in getting back to the coast. And I jumped on it and came back here and have loved it ever since. It's been a blast. So that's who I am and what I've been doing. And I really thank all of you for having me and tolerating my idiosyncrasies. And I bless you for yours. So, any questions, concerns, or ideas?
Tom, could you do the real estate part again? I came in about 2 minutes to 10 and I
I
missed
sure will. I'll happily do that. We have 22 sales for the year to date. And we have no units for sale currently, but by Monday, we'll probably have 1 listing. And we'll sell that quickly too. It's a type of unit that is in high demand, and we have a great wait list. We've sold the last probably 6 or 8 right off the wait list. So it's working like a charm. So our real estate prices are holding up. They've actually been record prices in 5 or 6 of the units that have sold most recently. So it's an exciting time. Hilton Head Real Estate hasn't slowed down either. I mean, it's really maintained well. Prices are well. I mean, we had a huge surge about 2 to 3 years ago, and that has kind of leveled off, but it's good. It's a good level. Units are selling quickly, and new people moving in, and we love it. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Tom, early on, I don't remember where I heard it. Did V come from Hyatt, or is it still part of Hyatt?
That's a great question. Yeah. They started about 38 years ago. Penny Pritzker, who is part of the family that also owns Hyatt, started a company to for her grandmother out in Reno, Nevada, actually, that would be a rental retirement community. They built and developed about 10 of those, and then got into the continuing care retirement community business. They've never been a part of Hyatt Hotels. Okay? They just happen to have the same owners, the same family as owning. Back about 12 years ago, Hyatt Hotels went public. And so we separated names completely. We used to be called Classic Residence by Hyatt. using the name as part of the Hyatt family because we could, we're part of the owners. When the company went public and sold 49%, basically, they still maintain the 51%, the family. Then they thought investors may be confused, so they changed the name to V, which was a hilarious surprise to all of us. We always thought we should have a shorter name, but it's not quite that. So, it still is held, V is still held by family members and other investors. But it's never been part of the Hyatt Hotels other than originally to use that name and a lot of services, etc. You know, we have had over the years the same insurance people, which really benefited us a lot until we could get on our own. And the entity now is those 10 communities. And the insurers even like that better. So, to answer your question, I think there's maybe 3 Pritzkers involved, but the Hyatt Corporation is not involved. Good question.
And V has a management contract for here
Correct.
versus an ownership
Right.
contract?
Yeah, that's another good point, is that all 10 of the V communities, all but us, are the buildings are owned by V. They're all what I mentioned earlier, a type A, where you put money in and you have a right to occupy, and you get 90% back or 50% back, or it's fully amortized, depending on your choice. But V owns the building. Here, you, as an association and as an individual, own the whole thing, except for the care center and some undeveloped land that you've seen over on that side. Okay, so we manage that for you. We also have the real estate company that sells and manages that piece, and then we own and manage the care center. It's very different from the other 9. The other 9 are owned by V and managed by V, and there are partners in several of the other ones. The 2 in Arizona have a partner that is called Plaza Companies. So there are a few that have partnerships, but V has ownership of all of them but here. And when they purchased here, they purchased it out of bankruptcy in a court in Cincinnati, Ohio, and were the preferred bidder. Our resident board at the time actually encouraged the judge to pick Classic Residence by Hyatt because they had some familiarity with the Pritzker family in Chicago, and were encouraged about the quality that they would take care of, which they did come in. They built Spruce Court, some of Shoreline, finished the clubhouse, and got everything running at that point. But basically, Tide Point had gone broke under the previous owners, and the developer went to jail. Okay, yes, Ms. O'Brien.
Thank you.
The information that we have already filed about our evacuation plans, if we think we want to change them, where would we go to?
You can go see Carrie in Member Services or Sherry in the Wellness Center. Either one of those, just let them know. You can send them an email, you can talk to them, which is preferred, and just visit with them about what your plan is. Yes, Ms. Moon.
Hi, Tom, first, thank you for that round table at breakfast. That's been kind of a community gathering place that people gather at breakfast, which is the community round table, what do we call it? Friends table. The friends table. That's been great. Regarding the dining room, I had a question for you. When I came, they said that they were sensitive to people like with diabetes. and, people who are gluten-free or celiac, which I am. And I know Gail Case, there are a few people here. Is there a way to have, maybe a concierge desk? I'm not looking to change the kitchen or change the menus or anything, but just to have it marked a week ahead of time, so that those of us who do need just assistance saying, well, this sauce is full of gluten, so don't eat it. You know, maybe just an X or a check or something. Is there a way we do that? Because I know it said you were sensitive to dietary needs.
Well, we will never guarantee
No.
gluten-free, okay? Because we have flour in our kitchen, okay? If you have flour in the same kitchen, you cannot be gluten-free.
Right.
So we will not mark, advertise, or promise
No,
to be gluten-free.
never. Just
Okay.
what
So we're
sauces
not
have
gonna
things
mark
in
it and pretend that we are.
Right.
There's a local pizza parlor here that advertises gluten-free pizza. Okay, that's absolutely false. They cannot have gluten-free and have a gluten-free pizza where they make regular pizzas. You can't do it. So it's a dangerous thing to promise. If somebody has celiac disease, they should not eat in the dining room. Okay. It's very serious. We can't promise that we will not have flour in your food of some parts. Okay? Anything else for the good of the group? Yes, ma'am.
Who will be the interim director?
I'm gonna hang around till they get somebody, or the end of the year, whichever comes first. If they decide that I need to go, then they'll have an interim. We have several associate executive directors, one in La Jolla and one in Palo Alto, who are not quite ready to jump in to this exciting experience. But they might be able to do it on an interim basis. So you may see an interim. That's currently not the plan. And I'll keep working as long as they'll have me up until the end of the year. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any possibility we could get dinner reservations on the website?
Yes. Not immediately, but
But
forthcoming.
sometimes it becomes sort of a.
Yeah, there are new systems that we'll be looking at in the coming year that will be able to do those things. Currently, the communities that have a system, it's not functioning well. Like Your Table, or what's the name of it? What's the name of it? Something Table.
Open table.
Open Table will only tell you when you can't eat. And we don't want it to be that way. We're very, we can get people in, okay? What an Open Tables type system is just say this time's blocked out. If you call the concierge, they're gonna work some stuff around in a 15-minute period to get you where you need to get. So it actually works better. Because you can work with a person who can think. So it will be forthcoming. Okay, any other questions? Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh.